Committee Room 29, Sound. 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 Committee Room 29. 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 Sound. Committee Room 29, 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 Sound. Committee Room 29. 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 Sound.
She confirmed.
Okay, thank you, members. And I confirm to Fáilte Rómhaigh we do have quorum, and I now call the 72nd meeting of the Committee for Communities to order. Can I remind anyone in the public gallery that mobile phones must be turned off? Mobile tablet devices can be used through a Wi-Fi connection, and all devices should be muted. Password details are available in the gallery for anyone wanting to connect to Assembly's Wi-Fi network, and no recordings or photographs may be taken. Can you also remind members about the protocols regarding the use of electronic devices? Please switch all mobile devices to airplane mode and activate Wi-Fi connection. Please also use tablet devices discreetly in a way which does not interfere with proceedings, and be aware of cameras when using the tablet device. I would also like to remind you once again about the sensitivity of microphones throughout the course of the meeting. And for any members joining by Zoom, can I ask you to be mindful of your background images, and also to keep a camera on while you're attending the meeting. So agenda item 1 then, members, is declaration of interests, and remind members of your responsibility to declare any interest in any of the items under discussion today. Do members have any specific items they wish to declare? Kelly?
Member of the deaf community.
Thank you, Kelly. And I think that's it. So thank you, members, for that then. Moving on to agenda item 2, which is apologies. Are members aware of any apologies? Clerk, members aware of
Lisa.
Melissa McHugh is an apology for today. And any other members aware of any other apologies?
Mark had said he may be late
Okay.
and is now not sure.
Okay, thank you for that, Clerk. So, members, you will be then moving on to Chair's business, and you'll be aware of the statement that the Minister delivered on Tuesday in plenary regarding the North-South Ministerial Council Language Body meeting that was held on 3rd of December 2025. A copy of the statement can be found in table correspondence under item 6.12 for your information. And secondly, members, I have been invited to attend and speak at a GA Club Summit occurring in Dublin, which I'm keen to do. Would members be content that I attend that in my capacity as chair of this committee?
Agreed.
Yeah, thank you, members. Members, I also attended an APG meeting on Tuesday, and I'm conscious that PAC, of which I am also a member, is carrying out work in relation to homelessness. Whilst PAC has primacy in relation to its own inquiry, I was going to propose that this committee send its report to PAC, even just for inclusion in its appendices as a collation of up-to-date information and evidence provided to this committee. I know we've sent to the Minister last week seeking his views and comments in the first instance. However, I think that the report could be of additional support to the work that PAC is currently undertaking. Would members be content that we forward the report?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Agenda item 4, members, draft minutes. Minutes from the meeting on 29th of January are page 7. Do members have any edits or amendments to the draft minutes? No, thank you, members. Are members then content to agree the minutes of 29th of January as drafted? Thank you. Moving then to matters arising. Agenda item 5. Members, you have been provided as usual with a summary table of matters arising at page 19. As usual, I'll ask for comments and will request to use the reference number if you want to make a comment in relation to a specific item. Can I ask if members have any comments or issues in relation to items 5.2 to 5.3? And if I can just flag up that 5.2 is a response from the Department in relation to the Good Relations Departmental Business Plan. 5.3 is a response from the NI Housing Executive in relation to the proposed acquisition of 600 homes. Currently, there have been no acquisitions to date. However, there are plans to commence acquisitions in early 2026. So, Kelly, I see you're indicating there.
Yes, Chair, thank you very much. It's just taking it to the Good Relations Departmental Business Plan. I know that shared housing has been moved out now to the Housing Executive. It would be useful if we could, I know that the department's current plan runs out in March of this year, but it would be useful to know what equality impacts assessments the Housing Executive are running on the shared housing programme. I'm particularly interested to see if there has been any movement. The original intention of the shared housing programme was Catholics and Protestants living together, but now we see with the growth of the number of different communities, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, to see if the Housing Executive are incorporating that diversity within the shared housing programme. If we could write to the Housing Executive just to ask them if they would be making any recommendations, for instance, to the department whenever they're doing their new Equality Action Plan, that shared housing needs to move from simply about the two religious communities to that wider Section 75 piece.
Members content with that suggestion? Yeah, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Will it be possible to find out where the initiatives are actually at? What part of the country these initiatives are taking place? Is it throughout the country or is it localised? Just for information.
Yeah, members content with.
Where the shared housing schemes are being developed? Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay, other, yep, go ahead.
It's under a different item, Chair. It's under item 5.3.
Yep, go ahead.
That's okay. It's just to note that I think this minister, or the minister, made this announcement in March. And like this, I think we're now 9 months later, and this is confirming that there's been no acquisitions to date. Is it worthwhile asking just like a timeline of what the process has been from then until now, and actually when we're going to see? I know it's in early 2026, but if we can get something more concrete or more solid around that.
Yeah. Members content that we seek that information? Yeah. Clerk and Dan?
Plan of action and timeline for acquisition, yeah?
Yeah, just and even from March till now, you know, what has been, I suppose, taking place in that time period. It just seems like it's a long time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, members. So that's anything else on 5.2 to 5.3. Are members otherwise content? We'll move then to items 5.4 to 5.6, and these are all responses from Speaker to the committee's correspondence, so we'll take those as a bundle together. Firstly, 5.4 is a response relating to accessibility within Parliament buildings for those with hearing loss. Do members have any comments in relation to that response? Kiali?
Thank you very much, Chair. As somebody who uses hearing aids, it's a bit of a general response we've received back from the Speaker on 5.4. I can confirm that our computer systems do not link in with hearing aids. He's right in saying that there has been access to enhanced headsets in the chamber, but to be honest, if you can't hear through your ears, you just need to connect to the microphones. I think this is something that our Sign Language Act, when it finally comes through, will certainly support future members with hearing loss. At the minute, not being able to connect to the phones in the building and not being able to connect to computers that we've been provided with, that really doesn't make any sense. I don't know if anybody else that works for the Assembly is able to do that, but I know that I have tried hard to do this. But I think that there's hope for this Act coming forward. There's no action point out of this, but it's just to point out there is a bit of a difference between what the Speaker has said and what actually is available.
Yeah, the lived experience. So, okay, well, as you say, hopefully the legislation will continue to drive further improvement into across all of the public sector in particular. Item 5.5 then is the Speaker's response to the committee's letter raising concerns about the legislative workload. So any comment on that one, or on 5.6 then is in relation to the timeliness of responses from the department to committee, and I think it's essentially saying it's overdue to yourselves and persistence to try to get so I think that is something that we will continue to seek the responses to those particular questions arising. Any other comments in relation to that block, members? 5.5 to 5.4 to 5.6. Kiali?
Sorry, yes, Chair, I share the Speaker's concerns and of course our concerns about the what's left in this mandate and the amount of time that we will need as a committee to carry out appropriate scrutiny. Have we already written to the department to highlight a timeline for ourselves? Because Emer had provided a very good outline of how many meetings that we have left and the amount of scrutiny, especially if we are going to have a fair and open consultation period for each of the pieces of legislation. So have we highlighted that to the department yet?
We have on a number of occasions. We have, and we will continue, I think, to keep an eye on that, because it is obviously going to be a huge management issue for us going forward.
I just was wondering if there's, if we count back the amount of time that's going to take for a consultation, so 12 weeks out to the public would be preferred, the time before and the time after that, and of course the time to complete a report and so on. There becomes almost like a stage at this part of the mandate where we can count back from the pre-election period to a deadline. I don't know whether we can have a look and just confirm what the deadline is, sort of within a month period. So you'd have the optimum deadline and then the very last minute deadline that we can take, just so that as a committee we will be aware, is that going to be, for instance, the end of September or October? Yeah.
Well, I'll just check with the clerk, because I know there has been ongoing work with probably in relation to.
I haven't counted it to the 1 month that you've suggested. Happy to do that.
Okay. Members content that the clerk would look at that.
And a timelining of bill management then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, members, then,
Sorry, Chair,
go ahead.
It's just on item 5.6.
Yep.
From the Speaker. And I just think, just in light of what was said last week at the committee by the Minister in terms of the scrutiny role of the committee, I just think it's right and proper to highlight what the Speaker has noted in his response to us, that it is the committee's right to continue to proactively pursue scrutiny, and just highlight that this committee is actively doing that, and I think we are doing the right thing, and that's backed up by what the Speaker has said.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Chair. Kelly?
I was going to actually say it's very interesting when the Speaker had said that he has no sanctions available for ministers who fail to excuse me, make deadlines for questions or FOIs. I'm just wondering if, I don't know, Chair, if we should write to AERC and ask them in their forward work programme if they could consider this matter, because it's not for a committee to, well, a statutory committee to sanction, but I'm just actually wondering if there's anything there that can be done through AERC to review that process. Is it a case that we'd need to maybe bring that back to a Speaker's role? It's just that for now, I've noticed that the questions, since we mentioned it in committee, all of a sudden seem to be appearing quite quickly, which is great. But I'm concerned about the length of time it is taking our minister. I don't know what it's like in other committees, but is it worthwhile writing to AERC to ask them to put it on their forward work programme, or even into their report for the next committee coming in the next mandate?
I have no issue with that. Is members content? That, yeah. Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that not only is this committee and indeed the department dealing with multiple significant sections of activity within government, but also that in instances where specific questions are asked and a response doesn't contain an answer to that question, that will obviously necessitate a repeat of the question, and that I think there's a lesson for the department in relation to focusing on the specific detail that we're asking for. I mean, if the information in any given instance isn't available, then say that, but not answering that question in the reply leads then to obviously that further need to go back to them again. Okay, so members content with that, and then I'm moving on. I think now it's from 5.7 to 5.9. 5.7 there. Well, actually, I'll check with members first, and then I'll flag a few if there's any the members wish to raise any issues with. I will highlight 5.7 then, as a response from the housing executive regarding the removal of the no detriment policy. There's an offer of further information or a briefing on this change should members consider that would be helpful. Would members be content with the response, or do you want to seek a further briefing in relation to that, or content with the response? Go ahead, Kelly.
I was going to say, I appreciate that our time is very tight in this committee. Even if we could have a written update on where they're at so far with the review of that system of review of the housing points, because this has an impact. Other decisions that may be taken will have an impact, and it would be good to get an understanding of where they are and what's their thinking on that, because while it has been moved out of the department to the housing executive is still an arm's length body, and I do believe that we need to be involved in that role with them to make sure that when they're considering, full duty status and how things are coming forward, that we do have a scrutiny role in that, and can even highlight to the minister where there are concerns coming forward.
Yeah, members content. Yeah. 5.8 is another response from the executive regarding category types within delivering accessible homes. They've advised that the categories are defined by the department and implemented by the housing executive, so therefore they would state that's a matter for DFC. Any comments in relation to that item? Members content with that? Yeah. Moving on to item 5.9 then, and this is a topical digest paper from RAISE on the Fraud, Error and Recovery PAFER Act. Members should note that while the topical digest is comprehensive and packed full of links to much more substantive information, RAISE is also currently in the process of pulling together a more substantive research paper highlighting the key issues raised during the Westminster Bill's passage, and this will be provided to the committee when it is complete. I'm conscious there's a lot of information and links contained in the digest, and would ask members to use it as a reference point in the forthcoming months. With this in mind and knowledge that we are to expect 3 further bills, are members content that committee request pre-introduction briefings for those other 3 bills, which the department has indicated should be introduced between March and May, so we can get a head start on those? Yeah, members content, thank you. Okay, members, that concludes matters arising then. So moving on to correspondence. And members, as we usually proceed through the correspondence, I would ask you to throw out, highlight or seek briefing in relation to any specific item, or if you're content to confirm this step as proposed in the memo at item 6.1, starting on page 69 of your pack. Item 6.3 then is information about the housing conference scheduled for 25th of March, hosted by Agenda NI. So just check if members are aware of that, or any members intending to attend that conference. Yeah. Okay. Well. So, if members do wish to attend, they can check with clerk, I think, if they wish to attend that in their role as committee members. Item 6.4 is the most recent report from the ESR, which doesn't draw special attention to any communities regulations in particular. So can I ask if members have any comment in relation to item 6.3 or 6.4? No? Members content with the memo there? Thank you. Item 6.5 is an item of correspondence from an individual. Item 6.14 at page 11 is also a follow-up correspondence from this individual, expressing concerns that no oversight body here is being held to account, and that the issue is, as this person states, not an individual matter but one of a failure to hold statutory agencies to account in relation to their outstanding complaint. Rehousing. Committee has previously responded to this individual and is one of a number of organisations being corresponded with in relation to this issue. So I wonder, the member have any further comments to wish to make, Kelly?
All right, Chair. I appreciate we don't deal with individual matters, and that's very right for this committee not to do, but this has highlighted some sort of systemic issue. I'm very aware that the Northern Ireland Public Services Ombudsman is looking into different issues with regards to the housing executive, not on individual cases. This would be about the process of complaints, as the Ombudsman does look at. I'm just wondering, I'll take your advice on this. I'm not sure if it would be appropriate for us to forward this on to the Northern Ireland Public Services Ombudsman, or to, when we're writing back again to say that we can't deal with individual cases, to suggest maybe that the person contacts NIPSO. I think they have already, but it just might be worthwhile if, headlining to them that NIPSO is looking at the housing executive at the moment.
Yeah, I think NIPSO are one of the responding ones, but I was wondering, maybe should we seek assurance from the housing executive in relation to discharging its obligations effectively, in relation.
There are issues. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly. Yeah.
Sorry. There are issues, Chair, with some of the suppliers, which it tends to come through as individual cases as opposed to a systemic thing. But when you start to add all of these together, who is looking over and checking to make sure that the maintenance is done? Now, I know the housing executive go out and check it, but there seems to be an awful lot of issues bubbling up there. So I would support that request by yourself to ask the housing executive that oversight role and what's happening, and how we're assured that there is this checking point made with their subcontractors, especially with regards to maintenance.
Yeah. Members content? Yeah. So anything else within those couple of members? And then otherwise moving on to 6.6 to 6.10. 6.9 is information from the Finance Committee in relation to 25-26 expenditure outturn and forecast outturn for November and December. Items 6.10 is correspondence from another individual, and the committee is copied on this one for information only. So any comment there, members, in relation to 6.6 to 6.10? Members are content with the memo as provided. Members, there's also a tabled correspondence memo, page 4 of the table pack, with further items of correspondence. Do members have any issues they want to raise in relation to 6.12 to 6.15? And just to say, Kelly, item 6.15 is a letter you raised in AOB last week from Unite in relation to independent licence review and offers a briefing to the committee. Can I seek members' views in relation to that? Members be content we seek a briefing, and is that a written briefing, or we've already got the briefing, have we?
We could ask for a written briefing in the first instance.
I think, I think that'd be useful if members are content. Yeah. Deputy Chair.
Chair, just under item 6.13, and I'm just flagging it because it was something that was raised in Education Committee yesterday as well. And like was stated, nobody begrudges any school getting extra investment, especially around health and wellbeing. But it's just if we could get some more clarity on it as to what money was spent, where it was spent, and the likes of that. And the point was made, I suppose, that we're corresponded with very often from schools with roofs falling in and can't get children into certain classrooms because of the state of the estate, for want of better words. So it'd just be good if we could maybe just get some more clarity on that. It is a large sum of money that has been spent.
Yeah, and did you include within that the criteria that's used for
the criteria, please?
That's used for that. Members content to seek that? Yep. Okay. Thank you. So, can I then ask if members are then otherwise content with the actions as noted in the correspondence memos in both main and table packs? Thank you. Okay, members, moving on to agenda item 7, Sign Language Bill, Agreement of Committee Report. So, you were provided members with a draft copy of the committee's report on our consideration and scrutiny of the Sign Language Bill last week, and I had asked members to forward any amendments to the committee team by noon yesterday, Wednesday the 4th of February. And I can just confirm with the clerk that there were no amendments received.
No.
Which I think is a testament to the quality of the report that was provided, I have to say. Really, really excellent. So there were no amendments received, but an updated version of the report with small additions from the team in red for ease of identification is in your table pack at page 46. So, can I ask, do members have any final proposed amendments to the draft report to propose before I commence formal agreement for the record? Kelly?
Chair, is it out of order? Now, this is a bit of a strange one, members, so listen to this one.
Likely then, Kelly.
Is it out of order for us to actually thank our own clerks and the team in the report to make that formal? Because this has been a very impressive piece of work on this particular type of bill. A credit where credit's due. The Assembly and our team here, the clerks team, have made it very easy and inclusive for people who are deaf, and I think that from us as members, I would just like, if I don't know if there's a way to do that or if it's appropriate in a formal professional committee meeting or committee report to do that, but it has been outstanding. And from the comments that I've had from some of the organisations that attended some of the witness sessions, they are stunned that how much they felt included, how much that debate was open and flowing, and how much they were able to interact with us as a committee and even with the department with their interactions.
Yeah, given the unprecedented nature of how the scrutiny had to be done, but also then the exemplary way in which it was done, I absolutely think it would be appropriate that we would put a formal note into the committee that the members of the committee wish to thank the committee team for the nature and way and this would need to be worded better. I'm going to have to ask the clerk to word up, which will be very difficult for her, but I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that, to be honest. So in principle, and I think if we could agree then, we get a form of words emailed and agree that by email, we could sign off on the report today.
Yep, I would like to take advice on that as president, but thank you very much for the comments. There is an acknowledgement section in the report, was more as acknowledged than everybody else, so we could see if there's a way to do that. Yeah,
no, absolutely appropriate. I've said that repeatedly, and it really was an outstanding piece of co-production and engagement throughout the course of it. Pam?
Yeah, Chair, I agree. I mean, just think, given the unique circumstances of this particular piece of legislation, I think it would be appropriate. I know it might be a bit uncomfortable, self-praise is no praise and all that, but so it might feel a bit awkward, I get that, but I completely agree. Yeah, I think if it can include, we should.
It has been unprecedented, and therefore I think something different being done is entirely appropriate in this sense, and it's a really good exemplar. Okay, so can we go ahead, clerk, and agree the rest of the report, and then you take that back to us. So, anything else then, members, before I move to the formal consideration? So, I will now proceed through the report, seeking the committee's formal agreement on the report as drafted, starting at page 48 of the table pack with the title page, content page, powers, membership and list of abbreviations and acronyms. Can I refer members to the title page, contents page, committee powers, membership and list of abbreviations and acronyms of the report? And can I put the question, are members content that the title page, contents page, committee powers, membership and list of abbreviations and acronyms pages stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Executive summary, members, at paragraphs 1 to 9. Are members content that the executive summary section, paragraphs 1 to 9, stand part of the report? Are members agreed? Agreed. Thank you, members. Introduction section. I refer members to the introduction section of the report at paragraphs 10 to 17. Can I now put the question, are members content that the introduction section at paragraphs 10 to 17 stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Committee approach then. I'm referring you to the committee approach section of the report at paragraphs 18 to 30. And put the question, are members content that the committee approach section at paragraphs 18 to 30 stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Moving then to consideration of the bill section of the report at paragraphs 31 to 47. Are members content that the consideration of the bill section at paragraphs 31 to 47 stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Clause by clause scrutiny then, which is contained at paragraphs 48 to 66. Are members content that the clause by clause scrutiny of the bill section at paragraphs 48 to 66 stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. In relation to recommendations, can I refer members to the section at report at paragraphs 67 to 90? And can I put the question to members, are members content that the recommendations section at paragraphs 67 to 90 stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Acknowledgements then, which is contained at paragraph 91 of the report. Are members content that the acknowledgements section at paragraph 91 stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
In relation to appendices, and refer you to the appendices section of the report from paragraph 92, you'll find a list of what will be included here, and the team are continuing to work on redacting relevant documents. But can I put the question, are members content that the appendices stand part of the report? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. So then this is to finally put the question that the report, and this is overall, that the report on the sign language bill be the 9th report of the Committee for Communities. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you, members. Agreed. Okay, members, thank you for that. Please note that any typographical or formatting errors in the report will be amended at final proofing stage before it is circulated to MLAs and published on the committee website. Can I seek members' agreement for the report to be led in the Business Office, circulated to all MLAs and published on the committee web pages on Thursday, 12th of February? This is to allow for signed content to be developed and available to members of the deaf community simultaneously. Are members agreed?
Agreed.
And can I seek agreement to send an embargoed copy of the bill report to the Minister for Communities? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. And lastly, members, can I ask members to review the draft press release to mark the end of the committee stage at page 310 of your pack? Are members content that the team work with communications colleagues to distribute to media as appropriate to include embargoing the release if required? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you, members. And that concludes what has been a really significant piece of work. And I want to thank all of you as well in relation to your scrutiny and attendance and engagement with sectors. I think it's been a really diligent piece of work by the committee, and as I have said and has been very appropriately noted, I want to give a final thank you to the clerk and all of the team here who done all of that work throughout a very, very unique and a very important bill. So Gora Mila Moyagov Galer. Thank you all. Okay, so moving then, members, to agenda item 8, which is Universal Credit Removal of Two-Child Limit Bill LCM, and this is consideration of the committee report. So members, you've been provided with a copy of the draft committee report at page 313 of the meeting pack. Also at page 113 of table papers, there's additional information provided by Law Centre NI relating to members' questions last week regarding transitional protections. This is the formal consideration before the report is ordered to be published. I would remind you that we are focusing on the text of the report only, as the team will then address any formatting issues once the text is agreed. I will ask for comments and then agreement on each section of the report, and we'll start with powers and membership at page 315. So are members content to proceed on that basis? Yeah. Thank you. I refer members then to the background section of the report at pages 318 to 319. Are members content with these paragraphs as drafted? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. I refer members to the evidence section of the report at pages 320 to 326. Are members content with these paragraphs as drafted? Agreed? Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you. Members are content. I refer members to the committee consideration of the bill at page 327. Are members content with these paragraphs as drafted? Are members agreed? Yeah.
Agreed.
Thank you. Members, that now concludes the committee consideration of the draft report. So can I now put the question that the Committee for Communities orders the report on the legislative consent memorandum for the Universal Credit Removal of Two-Child Limit Bill be the 8th report of the Committee for Communities? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you, members. Okay, members, moving on then to today's briefing session, our first briefing session.
Our witnesses haven't arrived. We may need to pause slightly.
Okay, so we'll take a short break there, members, to allow witnesses to arrive, and we'll come back in 5 minutes, please, and hopefully we'll be ready to roll.
Committee Room 29, Sound. 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 Committee Room 29, Sound.
She confirmed open.
Okay, thank you, Clerk and members. So that's us resuming then our meeting at agenda item 9, and this is the Departmental Disability Action Plan 2025 to 2030. We're hearing oral evidence today from the Department for Communities. Members, the briefing paper for the agenda item is at page 119 of your table papers, and in addition to the official's briefing paper, you have been re-provided with papers from November 2025, which was a report on the Department's consultation. So we now like to welcome the following department officials to the meeting, and thank you for coming a little earlier and facilitating us in that regard. And we have Carol Savage, who's Deputy Director in the Central Policy Division, Department for Communities, and Emma Neal. And Emma is the Head of Equality and LGBT Policy within the Department for Communities. So Carol, I think it's yourself maybe is going to make a brief opening statement, and then we'll go to questions from members. Thank you.
And, Chair, members, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to brief the committee on our Disability Action Plan 2025 to 2030. I'll talk very briefly, run through some of the things you probably will have seen in your briefing paper, outlining the background to the Disability Action Plan, including the statutory context, how it was developed, and then some detail on the consultation process that led us to the finalisation of the plan. So first of all, in terms of statutory background, the Disability Action Plan is a legal requirement under the Disability Discrimination Act 1995. Under Section 49 of that Act, all public authorities must have due regard to two duties known as the disability duties. They are promoting positive attitudes towards disabled people and encouraging the participation of disabled people in public life. Turning to the purpose and scope of the Disability Action Plan, the plan demonstrates how the Department proposes to fulfil those duties in relation to all of its functions. It's important to stress that the Disability Action Plan has a specific and narrow legal focus, and that it covers actions directly linked to the two disability duties, the promoting positive attitudes and encouraging disabled people's participation in public life. Promoting positive attitudes can include taking steps to portray disabled people in a positive role, as well as taking steps to eliminate ignorance and prejudice towards disabled people. Encouraging disabled people's participation in public life can include taking measures to involve disabled people in public policy and formulation and decision making. Includes government appointments, community associations, citizens panels and public bodies, focus groups or working groups. The 2025 to 30 plan was prepared by the Department's Equality Unit, headed by Emma, with contributions from all of the diverse departmental business areas. Whilst the Equality Units pulled together the Disability Action Plan, each of these actions is the responsibility then of the individual business areas. You can imagine the range of functions that the department has, so that's quite a complex, as I say, collection of actions. You'll be aware also that the department supports a wide range of statutory bodies. There will be designated public authorities in their own right under the legislation that we spoke about earlier, and they will be required then to produce their own disability action plans. So the plan represents or relates only really to the department's core functions and specific action measures promoting the disability duties across arts, museums, libraries. Sports sectors will feature they will feature in the published plans of our arm's length bodies. So the development of the 25 to 30 plan followed a review of the previous Disability Action Plan, which provided the basis for the new plan, that review. The draft plan was issued for public consultation from 3rd of April to the 30th of May last year, and I believe on the 10th of April the committee considered the DFC draft action plan consultation document. In terms of responses to the consultation, we received 22 responses, including 10 individual responses and responses submitted from a range of organisations. Following review and analysis of the consultation responses, an outcome report was produced and the Disability Action Plan was revised accordingly. On the 6th of November, the committee were provided with a copy of the updated DFC Action Plan, Disability Action Plan 25 to 30. And following the public consultation, they were provided with the consultation outcome report. So just to summarise then, the Disability Action Plan sets out the Department's commitments to fulfilling its statutory disability duties over the next 5 years. It's important to stress that it is reviewed annually, and it can be and it's expected to be updated as and when things develop and new actions come online or issues are raised. So that's a really quick run through the background. So happy to take any questions.
Yep, thank you, Carol. So a couple from me first, and then I'll go to members, and then we'll see where we're at. Can you give me a couple of examples of any specific actions that were changed as a direct result of the consultation feedback, and where are those changes evidenced in this document?
There's a range. You'll see in the consultation response document that provided, the department listed all of the responses to the consultation and our departmental response. So there were a number. I mean, there was broad kind of agreement with what we had there. The people were broadly positive. There were one or two. I think there was one in and around participation in sport. I think where there was a request that we recognise mental health issues alongside the, and specifically include that. So that's an example of maybe where we changed a specific action. Some of the responses looked for more clarity in terms of the language in and around it. And again, we tried to reflect those where possible. But you'll see, as I say, there was a substantial departmental response report was produced. So for every one of the consultation responses, the department responded.
Yeah. And then can I also ask then, how will the department measure real impacts on attitudes and participation levels where performances indicators are currently the focus? So it's more on delivery, and there are key indicators about that. How will you assess what the impact, should those delivery items be achieved? How will you assess the impact?
As I say, every year we produce a report to ECNI, and part of what we do is review the Disability Action Plan in terms of progress against the indicators and progress against the actions we've committed to within that. So that will be done on an annual basis. We go out to each of the business areas. We highlight, as I say, the actions that they've committed to in the Disability Action Plan. We ask for reports of progress against that, and then we also, as I say, importantly earlier on, we commission then, or we ask them to look at what further actions they can take. Some of this will be drilled down. For example, the disability strategy, the broader executive disability strategy is in there. So there'll be a whole range of measures in and around attitudes, participation, all of that within the disability strategy. And then individual work areas then will have their own kind of targets and measures within that. It's not something we look at broadly within the indicators within the DAP, the Disability Action Plan per se. Although there are things in there that we can measure and we can point to, for example, the likes of the intranet articles and use of imagery. We report on all that, we collate that information, we share it with ECNI, and then we get feedback every year.
Okay, thank you. So I have an indication from Kelly there, and then we're coming to Deputy Chair Cathy Mason. So Kelly, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Carl. I'm very aware that this is the departmental disability action plan, as opposed to, as you say, the main disability strategy that covers the whole of Northern Ireland. But I'm just wondering, with community's role, and it's so strong with disability, is there a comparison made between your action plan and every other department? And is there any way, if there's gaps in any other departments, that communities can feed into that and proffer advice for the other departments?
Well, yeah. This department probably is unique in that sense because it is disability policy lead for the executive, and because it's producing the disability strategy, our focus probably in terms of the day-to-day function of the department is much wider than others. So it would be different in that respect. So it has a slightly more outward focus than maybe other disability action plans would have. In terms of, it's difficult because, as I say, the responsibility to produce the plan will be for those executive departments as public bodies to do themselves. In terms of wider gaps in provision, I suppose that's where the executive strategy would probably be more appropriate to look at. And again, that's one of the things that the likes of the cross-departmental working groups and others that have been set up for that disability strategy would look at. And we kind of don't want to duplicate functions either. So I think that's probably where things like that may be picked up, but
okay. I was just wondering as well then, my next question is just about that participation in public life. Is there any positive action? I didn't see it in the paper, forgive me if I've read past it too quick, about positive action being taken with regards to the boards that are associated with the Department for Communities. So for instance, the Arm's Length Bodies boards, to have representation of people with disabilities on those boards. So it means then that there's not just a staffing element, that inclusive of people with disabilities, but there's also a top-down inclusion.
yes, well, in terms of the likes of the guaranteed interview scheme, that kind of thing, there are actions then within some of those are continued on from previous disability action plans, but there are Is that the kind of action you mean?
Well, I'm sort of thinking about the boards because they're very much a different process than an employment board, you know. So we have it here with the Assembly, and you've got positive actions to ensure that interviews are offered. But I'm just thinking of the boards. I haven't seen anything particularly precise from them in any adverts to welcome people with disabilities, for instance, to apply. I'm thinking in particular of, say, the Board of the Housing Executive or anything like that.
The ALBs are referenced in terms of the constitution of the boards. Emma, did you want to?
Yeah, that was actually something which was brought up during the consultation, and there was some really helpful feedback on measures to improve disabled people's representation on the boards of public authorities in general. There was some of the ideas were things such as consideration of capacity building through work shadowing and participation in boardroom apprentice programmes, those kind of things. Now, suffice to say, the Department does undertake appointments to boards in line with the Code of Practice of the Commissioner for Public Appointments in Northern Ireland, but the Department, within its consultation outcome report, it has committed to engaging with TEO Central Appointments Unit on any NICS-wide activities that can be considered, and also indeed with the new Commissioner, just to see if any of these ideas could be. We obviously have the guaranteed interview scheme, but whether there's something more that could be done, that I think the idea would be that the department will engage with the Commissioner and with colleagues in TEO Central Appointments Unit to see if something can be done NICS wide. Okay.
The other thing I just wanted to ask, and to be honest, this is about the Minister has talked about different forums being set up to support the delivery of strategies, and he talked about the Disability Forum. A lot of people with disabilities, nothing about us without us. You know, they need to be able to see those people. Are there any plans on the department's website, for instance, to identify? I know it's not targeting at those individuals, but it's who they represent when they're on that forum and speaking to the department. Is there any plans to ensure that there's publicly available information about the forum, about its composition, not necessarily the individuals per se, but it's just how much that will be, because it would be good for people with disabilities and others to be able to see there's proactive actions, there's people here who look like me, who represent me on those forums. Is there any plans in that? I didn't see that coming up.
It won't necessarily be here, but in terms of the broader disability strategy, absolutely. I mean, there's the commitment within that to bring forward the forum. I know we can't go into the details of that because obviously it's not a finalised, we're open for consultation, it's still to be agreed by the executive, but the Minister's been really clear about that central involvement of deaf and disabled people within the forum. The idea is that we hit the ground running with this as quickly as possible, so there is work going on in the background as to how that will be constituted. We can't really go, as I say, until it's an agreed strategy, and as I say, we're in a position to publish these things, but I can guarantee you the intention is to move forward as quickly as possible on the establishment of the forum, and the kind of issues you're raising are absolutely front and centre in that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Carl. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Kathy?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks very much for your presentation. I just wanted to ask specifically around those with disabilities who also face the likes of rural isolation or are carers, or have mental health issues or things like that. Was there specific consideration taken in for that group of people in terms of outreach or inclusion as well?
Again, I think, you mean in terms of the consultation, in terms of the actions?
In terms of the actions?
Yeah, I think probably that those issues were probably more the focus of the disability strategy broadly, the executive studies that we're bringing forward, rather than the department's disability action plan per se.
Okay.
Sorry,
yeah, I think as well, the disability action plan, it does have quite a narrow focus.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's very much specifically on those two disability duties, which are specified in the Disability Discrimination Act. Actions around, say, the likes of promoting equality or around access, and that they are more appropriate within the Equality Action Plan.
Okay.
So the Equality Action Plan is something that it's not a statutory obligation, but Equality Commission guidance does direct departments and public authorities towards pulling that together. And it sets out what the department is doing or plans to do to fulfil its commitments to address inequalities, and that's across all of the Section 75 categories.
Okay.
And so it's a little bit broader, and it will include disability as well. So sometimes some of the actions that are not captured within the Disability Action Plan are more appropriate to be captured within our Equality Action Plan.
Okay.
Totally get that that's not ideal because you have all different sorts of plans and strategies and they're all looking at similar things and they all overlap. We're trying to bring the likes of the equality scheme, the action plan, the disability scheme all in line, so we're kind of reviewing them at the same time and looking at them currently, but it's a legislative requirement, you know, the likes of having these plans. So I know it's ideal and it can be confusing.
Yeah.
As to
So at the minute they don't take each other into consideration
they absolutely
when they're
do.
being, or they still are
Well, they absolutely do, but they just look at different things.
Right,
so
okay.
whenever, I mean, for instance, I talked about the annual report to the Equality Commission, that looks at both our Equality Action Plan and our Disability Action Plan.
Okay.
And we report to those concurrently, and then we go out to the teams and the various business areas across the department at the same time to bring the kind of focus of the two of them together, but they are separate.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Just then, I was reading there in some of this around the Disability Champion and the Diversity Champion. Can you just explain, there are two different things, or what's the roles of those two?
There's a NICS Disability Champion, as it Mark Goodfellow has recently taken up in DOJ, so he has the overall responsibility for champion disability issues across the NICS. There are others, there's a LGBT champion, there's race champion as well, and then each department has its own disability champion, or sorry, diversity champion. Yes, it's very easy. Diversity champion looking at the sort of broader equality issues. So we have, as a John Greer within our own department, has established, and there's a diversity forum or group within the department, and that kind of looks at those broader issues. So some of the communication things across the department that we're looking for in terms of raising profile or positive imagery across Section 75 groups, for instance, would be looked at within the department by our diversity champion.
Okay, that clears that up. And then just from previous disability action plans, I think the last one was a 2018, was possibly.
Action plan was 2020.
The last Disability Action Plan, it ran from 2020.
Okay. Is there any lessons or anything that came out of that in particular that were immediately addressed within this one?
Yeah, no, so there is, before the Disability Action Plan is pulled together, there will be a review of the previous one.
Okay.
And when carrying out the review, the department assesses basically what the Disability Action Plan has achieved, what remains to be done, and how to build on the success, and then meet sort of any challenges that have arisen. One of the main challenges that was assessed was the need to sustain the improvements achieved in face of increasing budgetary pressures. And one key area identified to manage this was around staff training. While substantial steps have been made in increasing staff knowledge and awareness of disability, it was acknowledged that this must be sustained. So the department intends to continue to train and inform staff about relevant issues and to report progress. And I think within this Disability Action Plan, there is a bit more of a focus on staff and a bit more of a focus on training as well.
And just to say as well, I think one of the things that the review report identified as well was the need to look at disability legislation. I think that had been highlighted as something that really was overdue in looking at. Obviously it wasn't done under the last, but we can actually put it's a concrete commitment then within the disability executive disability strategy that then can appear within this. So that was one of the kind of big issues that needed to be addressed, that hopefully it will be.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. And I suppose I'm wondering partly then around in relation to the LGBT policy, Emma, and we're very conscious we don't have a time frame on the overall strategy. So within the department, how do you think that sits within those within your department who, and I know we're discussing today disabilities and LGBT, or that interaction, but does that kind of challenge the idea of the department leading by example, the department that's responsible for those strategies, the fact that we don't have a timeline for the LGBTQ strategy itself?
Well, important to say, first of all, that the LGBT strategy is obviously completely different from this plan.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm saying, as you would expect them all to be interrelated in the sense that you would have one supporting the other.
Yeah. So the Minister decided whenever he came in that he wanted to phase the bringing in of the social inclusion strategy, starting with the anti-poverty strategy. You're probably aware of that, and then moving on to the disability strategy. So the anti-poverty strategy, the consultation is now complete. The disability strategy is out to consultation now. And now attention is moved towards the gender equality and the LGBT strategy to decide the time frame for those, and that's the stage that we're at the moment, just discussions around what the next steps are.
I mean, we're keen that, as I say, because responsibility for those all sit within the central policy, so while I know they weren't taken forward concurrently, there is that opportunity, and the teams all kind of work really closely together as well, so that, you know, we're acutely aware of the overlap and the intersection between all the strategies, so hopefully that won't be lost. So, and again, the teams are constantly in communication in terms of developments. As Emma rightly says, Minister decided that the best way forward, given the limited resources and the pressures that were on the executive, was to bring these forward concurrently, and he will make it. He's committed to bringing the other two strategies forward and making an announcement soon.
Okay, thank you. And the last one for me then, before I come to Andy for now, is you'd said that there was 22 responses, I think 10 from individuals and 22, or the remainder from organisations. Given the size of the overall cohort, how many people work within the department?
Oh, I think there's about 8,500, something along those lines. Yeah. I mean, it's enormous. And
we could expect a significant percentage of them those people will have disabilities. Would you be disappointed or that only 10 individuals responded? And I suppose really what I'm asking is, we're very conscious today, we've just signed off on the report into the sign language bill, and there were significant efforts made to ensure that people could engage in a way that matched them. Is there something of concern that only 10 people responded to this important consultation?
I don't think so. I think given the narrow focus, I take your point that maybe staff, I mean, we did obviously communicate to staff the fact that, and staff will actually be aware of this because of their day-to-day business, you know, that they will be aware that there will potentially be contributing actions that their business areas are making. It's difficult to say, and as I say, we thought because of the narrow focus, and a lot of the kind of outward focus and actions within this would be consulted on separately. So the likes of the disability strategy, there's extensive consultation going on now at the moment, and some of the actions in and around employability, for instance, will all be consulted on separately. So we're aware that there's other aspects and specific aspects that will be consulted on more directly. It's hard to say. Public consultations, these things don't always get the kind of response that we anticipate in terms of interest, but it's maybe something we could look at.
Okay, I'm going to come to Andy then. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Chair. And just a couple of points. You've already touched on these, but I'm just looking for some further information. In terms of the previous iterations of the action plans, are there any standout outcomes or achievements that you would obviously highlight that have worked well in obviously encouraging and supporting disabled people?
As I say, there's the full review which goes through each of the individual areas. So I think, you know, as I say, I'm wary of leaving business areas out, but I mean there were a few. The likes of the establishment of the DFC Diversity and Inclusion Hub was a kind of additional action that was taken forward.
What I keen to understand is what effect did that actually have in practice? What was the feedback to receive? Right, this has worked, and this is how it worked, and this is the impact it's had on those people.
One of the things, as I say, it's a commitment this time, and it was a commitment last time, was the likes of the International Day for Persons with Disabilities. So the department has made a kind of annual in December, a big event to mark that. This year was taken forward at the Belfast City Hall. It was a tribute to a colleague of ours, Sean Fitzsimmons, who had been on the expert advisory panel. And again, there's a lot of assessment that's widely publicised with our partners across the department. There's feedback on that, and there's assessment of the impact and is that the kind of thing you meant?
Look, they're important events, and they're important to have, and they're important to bring stakeholders together and acknowledge the work that has gone on, and obviously to pay tribute to Sean. But what I'm more interested in, you know, here's the work that we've done, and here is specifically what we've achieved through that work.
I mean, there is a section that talks about the number of actions, number that were achieved, number that were partially achieved, number that weren't achieved. As I say, and then it details them all individually. Is that
Are you getting any, but what I'm looking at is, are you getting any feedback from those that this action plan touches and impacts upon? You know, this is the action that you said you were going to take, and this is why it has worked, and this is the positive impact it's had in our lives, or our employability, or our interaction within the civil service.
Yeah, well, as I say, even because some of our work is outward focusing as well, I mean, we can point to in the likes of the disability in work, with 420 disabled people into employment, 100 mentoring sessions, delivered a range of careers, skills, entrepreneurship and self-employment sessions for over 100 disabled people. So some of those kind of more outward focusing actions, it's difficult to quantify in terms of attitudes. And again, we're looking at that broadly within the executive disability strategy as to how that can be monitored and measured. But certainly, I mean, there were concrete outcomes against each of the actions under the previous plan. And as I say, they are detailed there. 4,375 people supported through our suite of employability programs. As I say, that there's a range of things there.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then just pivoting to disability legislation, I know it's highlighted in the action plan, it'll come forward on the disability strategy, but obviously you've alluded to it there in your remarks. Where are we on that? Because I think it's fair to say it's been known for some time that it needed to be updated, and it mentions about work subject to resource. Where is that work at the moment?
That work, again, it's probably similar answer to the one on the Disability Forum. It's a concrete commitment within the strategy, but that doesn't mean we're waiting for the strategy to be agreed before it's taken forward. There has been a dedicated resource within Central Policy that has been looking at a kind of initial assessment. We've engaged with the Departmental Solicitor's Office as well, so we're looking at how we can take that forward at the next step, because again, a wee bit like the Forum, conscious that we can't wait for this, it'll need to hit the ground running once there's agreement to do it. Yeah. It's not, I mean, I don't need to tell you that the complexities in and around this will be substantial, so there will be a lot of work to do this properly, and as I say, we're looking at this in the context of incorporating UNCRPD at the same time, so there will be a lot of work in and around this, but initial work has been taken forward. We're looking at how we take that forward to the next step in anticipation of moving forward rapidly once this has been agreed.
And do you have any timeline on that, when we're likely to see that work conclude and potentially then the output of that being legislation?
I think really, I mean, it will be the next mandate realistically, because of the sheer scope, because we will have to engage with other departments as well in this and the range of things that it impacts on. So I would be loath to give you a number of years, but it won't be this mandate. I think that's not unrealistic to say.
No, appreciate that. And then just the last one to pivot to the work around public appointments and ALBs. And I know the data and statistics are published annually. Is there anything that you point to that you've done specifically within previous action plans, or even within this one, that has led to the increased number of appointments for people with disabilities?
I mean, I think that the guaranteed interview scheme has been something which has certainly been used, and I think has increased candidates coming forward for public bodies in terms of the appointments. I think that's worked. Yeah. That's something which appeared within the last Disability Action Plan, and it's something which is appearing in this one too.
You know, and I suppose the reason I ask that is, and I can obviously lean on my own personal example, and different people have different experiences, but certainly after I first became injured, I would have looked at many different roles within different settings and looked at and went, I'll never be able to do that. So it's how can we actually spotlight and highlight and say, actually, you can, and where there are barriers or challenges, here are the supports that are available to be able to achieve that. And maybe, you know, obviously those voices or those examples of people who have gone on to achieve outcomes and obviously appointments onto those public bodies.
Sometimes the individual voices are more powerful than statistics, but even, as I say, in terms of response to the consultation, we are currently working with the Executive Office Statistics and Research Branch on official public employment statistics to try and establish that kind of baseline so that it can be measured more effectively. So there is ongoing work on that. As I say, that's hopefully we'll see progress on that as the plan rolls out and is modified going forward.
Is the department doing any work to work with individuals that we were talking about that maybe have gone through onto those public appointments, or even within the civil service, that are prepared to obviously use their voice and use those individual examples and highlight maybe some of the challenges or barriers that they had, because they can talk directly to others who may be interested but feel actually, due to their own circumstances, that it's not for them, or the barriers are too great. And sometimes it's just hearing from others that have gone through that journey to obviously give you that message and that confidence that actually the barriers can be removed.
I think that's good feedback. We picked up on that earlier through an earlier question in terms of some of the feedback that was brought through in the consultation about some ideas. How to increase participation of disabled people on public bodies, on the boards, and that's something which I believe our colleagues wish to bring forward and to chat to folks in TEO about how we can bring that about NICSY, because there's obviously a lot of boards across the civil service. And I think that, but I don't think that point was brought up in the consultation actually, so that can certainly be something that we can feed back.
That's just my own perspective, certainly I have been inspired by individuals that I've seen who have faced challenges head on, and they've gone out there and they've shown that they can achieve, and really the sky's the limit. So I think we need to be obviously platforming that as much as we possibly can to say to others that actually there are opportunities out there and we can support you to be able to achieve them.
In terms of a lot of the work that's been done on employability, and as I say, not necessarily within this, but the disability and work strategy, again, hearing those voices has been, I know personally, has been quite inspirational whenever you hear that. So yeah, I mean, we can certainly take that away in terms of the public appointments aspect, because we're not close enough to know the work that's going on, but I can promise we'll take that away and discuss that with the team.
Not just public appointments, but across the spectrum.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah, but that specific aspect in terms of public appointments, we can see what's being done.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Andy. I don't see any other members indicating at the moment, so I think that's probably quite all the questions for now. But I want to thank you for bringing the briefing forward. It's important work and work that we're keen to see develop. So thank you for that. But for now, appreciate your attendance today. Thanks, Emma and Karen. Okay, members. So I just want to check then, members, if there's anything arising from that members wish to highlight or throw out. Are members content that we move on? Yep, thank you, members. So we'll go then to agenda item 10, which is the forward work programme.
If actually I maybe, and I know we're obviously probably in that space now, I think, into the next mandate, but obviously in our report for the next mandate is that we highlight the next committee to keep an eye on this, because I think just like everything, it's important that, words on paper become reality in practice. And I think it's just important that the next committee keeps an eye on that, especially given that this department is so wide-ranging.
Yeah, members content with that?
With the legacy report?
Yeah.
Great.
Maybe you could add on some sort of monitoring mechanism for disability sport, because that affects mental health as well, and physical activity, which is important, I think, anyway, to get as many people involved with sporting organisations as possible.
We flag that in our report as a key item to develop within this strategy.
Yeah.
Claire, you can do it?
Yes, I've got that.
And members content with both those? Yep, thank you, members. Okay, moving on to agenda item 10, which is the forward work programme, a copy of which is at page 331. Do members have any comments or content to note the forward work programme? Content, members, thank you.
Can I add in, we're just trying to reschedule the informal that was cancelled from last week. It's just subject to being able to get a room for Tuesday, next Tuesday.
Okay, so
but
just
we'll
to flag
that. I'll confirm that,
Okay, thank you, Clerk, and thank you, members. Agenda item 11 then is any other business. Do members have any other business they wish to raise? No, thank you. Agenda item 12 is date, time and location of our next meeting. Our next meeting will be at 10 a.m. on Thursday, 12th of February 2026 in room 29, Parliament Buildings, subject to that reminder around a potential informal meeting on Tuesday. So, members then, as our final agenda item is a briefing from a legal advisor. Can I propose that the meeting now move into closed session? Are members agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Clerk, can I ask you to take us out of broadcast?
Committee Room 29, sound. 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 Committee Room 29, Sound.